I was praying not too long ago, and I got to thinking about my prayers just earlier today. And I was telling God, I was actually thanking Him for all of the prayers that He's answered in my life. And there's not one single prayer that He has not answered. I can't think of any. He's answered every single one of them, but not one single one has been answered in the way that I thought it should have been answered and the time that it should have been answered, according to me, but it's been answered. And I can tell you it's been answered, every single one of them, as I think about, as I review my whole life. I'm 48 now. I'll be 49 this year. And I just can't think of one single time that he hadn't answered my prayer in a specific way that it wasn't even on my radar as to how he would answer it. I mean, there was times to where I thought that he would not answer it. There was times to where I thought the answer would be no. But it's always been just amazing. And to think about all the things that he's given me, and every single one of them, all of them compare in pale in comparison to what he's done for me as far as my salvation, eternal salvation. Just to think about that, how amazing his grace is, and you think about you see why and how the Apostle Paul can say how he prayed for. He had a messenger. It says a messenger of Satan sent to him from God. And he asked and he pleaded, God, please take this away. And some people say, some theologians that are smarter than me say it was a stomach ailment or some other issue. There's many different, uh, I guess, theories as to what his ailment was. But, I think that there's a reason why Scripture doesn't specifically say what the ailment was. But it does say, he says, he heard from the Lord and he said, my grace is sufficient for you. My grace. If God was to take his hand away just a little bit, just for a moment, we'd all see what his grace is. If God was to give us just a little ailment and all we could see was the cross, his grace is sufficient. If he never answered a single prayer ever again, his grace is sufficient. But he goes on and he says, my grace is sufficient for my power. Wow, is made perfect in weakness. My power is made perfect in weakness. When you come to the end of yourself, when you're done, it's over with, you have nothing else to look to but his grace. You see his power, his strength. There's people walking around right now, multimillionaires, who can't see the forest for the trees. They don't know about God's grace. They're like Nebuchadnezzar, who looked out from his palace and said, look at all that I've made. Look at all that my hand has made. And what happens when we get like that, quite literally, our thinking becomes futile, becomes temporary. And what happened to Nebuchadnezzar? He was on a mind like an ox. He went crazy. And some of these things that we think that we did, those are the very things that are driving us out of our minds, things that are driving us crazy, until we realize His grace is more than sufficient. Until we realize that this weakness that he gave us is for a purpose, for a reason. You know, I saw something today, and I really don't even want to mention it. You know, there's people that prayed for us, and that was great. That was wonderful. That was just amazing. But you know, when the invitation was given at church today, there was a hand raised saying, I want to be saved. I want to follow Jesus. Wow. If that prayer is never answered, that one person's eternal salvation was the answer to it all. It was the answer to it all. His grace is more than sufficient. His power is made perfect in my weakness. God bless.